Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sparring Partners Podcast. My name is Coby McKinley, and as always, I'm joined by my man, Brad Jones. Brad, say hey to the people.
What up, people?
Man, we had a huge week. We had 3 cards in 8 days, and we already discussed the previous two in our last episode. And this week, it's all about UFC 257 and the fallout and all that good stuff. So, yeah, real quick, we'll do some housekeeping. Please subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up if you like it. Share it if you like it even more than that. It really helps us out. And as always, we're brought to you by filmfightfreaks.com, where I do my prelim predictions, and then the site runner Evan does the main card. I don't know, but you're looking at a guy who has a 57% prediction accuracy. So,
It's pretty impressive.
you know, I am technically better than flipping a coin.
Yeah.
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 Which actually, we are on Tapology now. So for every card, and I'll talk to you, Brad, about really the card as a whole. And so we'll be able to actually, in the long term, track our predictions on Tapology for every card.
Nice.
So that will be kind of cool.
Dope.
So yeah. Friend us on Tapology. Maybe you can get on top 8. All right. So, like I said, we're doing it old school because your boy forgot to make the PowerPoint to the audio people. That will make no difference to the YouTube people. Honestly, I don't know if it'll make a difference. It makes a difference to me, and I apologize. I apologize to my co-host. Apologize to our fans, and yeah, your boy's busy. All right, that's all there is to it.
It's a busy time.
It's a busy time. Mid-January, it's a tornado for everybody, okay? All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and share this screen, and we're gonna head on over to Tapology, where you can follow us and see our predictions and all that good stuff. But we're not gonna make any predictions today. We're gonna look at the fallout of UFC 257, Poirier McGregor 2. And I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna do that. The person who is, well, that's not gonna work. Never mind. We'll do that next week. We'll have a big screen where the person who's talking is the one who shows up on screen. That's in the settings. I'm not gonna mess with it right now. Yeah, Brad. So January 23rd, McGregor face down, and as the world already knows, he got struck down. And I guess what we'll do, we'll go ahead and start with the main event and talk about the main event, what we think about the main event. Yeah, I guess I'll let you. I guess I'll let you take this one.
It was a wild one. It was a wild main event. I've had, we've had 2-3 days to kind of process it now. Brought my thoughts around it. A little bit back down to earth more than Saturday night. Yeah, really wild. I mean, going into this, it was so strange. Like going into this, it was like the general MMA fandom was dead set that Conor was going to sleep him probably in the first round without much difficulty, more so than in the Cowboy fight, which in retrospect is very strange. Um, but it was just so shocking. It was such a shocking result when Dustin starts tearing up the leg with that low calf kick, and Conor just comes unraveled so fast. Um, yeah, God, this whole division. There's so many options and ways this thing can go now. Lightweight is just incredibly hot and exciting at the time. Yeah, love it. Love everything. Lightweight's incredible right now. What do you think?
Yeah, there was a lot made of the punching power of McGregor but not as much was made, and it's surprising. It was surprising at the time. It's especially surprising in hindsight that not as much was made about the durability of Poirier.
Yeah.
And Poirier said after the fight that McGregor did land a really solid left hand, and Poirier was honest after the fight that he said if McGregor would have known I was hurt and he would have poured it on, I may not be celebrating right now. So the increased durability of Poirier has as much to do with his victory as those leg kicks. And the leg kicks are really an interesting wrinkle to this loss. Um, and I'm curious what you think about it. First off, the X's and O's of it. The leg kicks were clearly making a difference, but it was almost like an on-off switch. I mean, you can really see in the replay of the events leading up to the stoppage when Poirier turns McGregor around onto the fence. He gets his back off the fence, and McGregor just doesn't move. And McGregor spoke after the fact that his leg was dead. And when you watch that replay, you really can tell, like, McGregor, it it may have been a gas issue. I don't think it was, but what it really looked like was he was just totally immobilized. He could not move. His leg was dead. You see him try and use it, but he just couldn't move. And when he's a sit and duck like that, Poirier is a good enough boxer that it just McGregor can't use his head movement as well because he can't rock back and forth between his feet. It must have been horrifying, honestly, for McGregor to be totally immobilized like that. It certainly proved a lot to Poirier. It has certainly changed the way a lot of people think about McGregor. And I think it's a real gut check moment for McGregor as much as it is the peak of a mountain for Poirier.
Yes, I mean definitely without um, making it too obvious. This is the lowest of the come to terms moments for Connor. I mean, the biggest thing about the leg kick that was so concerning to me was he showed in previous fights. It's been years now. At least an awareness of how to do something about it and try to prevent it in some ways. He had to do that against Chad Mendez, and he's had to do it in the past. And coming into this fight or early on in the very beginning when he's fresh, he just wasn't displaying any of those things. I mean, it's been made a big deal about him training primarily with just in a boxing format for these MMA fights, and he's really not kind of in that bouncing around, kicking, stance he was doing at featherweight a lot on his way up. But it's just I think he's just in a spot where it's like, I mean, even coming up to this, right? He's talking all this stuff about how he's going to go box Manny Pacquiao after this, and um, he's got his head all over the place. He's got to pick one thing and commit to it. Like if he's wants to come back and become UFC lightweight champion, he's got to go all in on that. Or if he wants to go box, then go box and don't do this because you're only fucked up when you come over here if you're going to be fighting top 3, top 2 guys in the world and you're coming over here like not fully focused on MMA. I mean, it's gonna be bad and it's only gonna hurt your stock over here. So he's talking, Connor's talking after this like he wants this immediate uh,
No.
third fight with Dustin. That does nothing for me right now. I mean, Dustin to me clearly needs to be fighting for the belt next, unquestionably. Um, we'll get more into that after we talk about the co-main event, but very interesting places that they now find themselves in their career. I want Conor to stick around MMA. I want him to keep fighting in MMA. But a couple things need to happen. One, he needs to turn all of his focus back onto it, and he needs to pick a goal like, I'm going to become lightweight champion again, or something to work towards. And then his next fight, we got to get him back on track. I don't want to see him immediately into a third Dustin fight after this. Um, like a Tony, like a Tony fight is where Conor should be going next for me. Where it's like, I mean, shit, the rankings are out. The new rankings are out. Conor McGregor is number 6 at lightweight in the world right now, which is, it's wild. That's crazy. But I mean, in retrospect, he's only ever fought a lightweight twice, and he's 1-1. Um, but it's just a wild thing, like it's crazy. He's all the way down at number 6 and at lightweight right now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. Who'd ever think that we would be asking where Ido Portal is?
Seriously.
Little
Yeah,
bit, he needed
seriously.
maybe a little bit more touch butt in the park and a little bit less childhood boxing coach.
Yeah.
It's it was an odd performance, and the thing is, like, there was a lot of talk about like his movement or whatever. I didn't read into it that much, honestly. I didn't really care to. um I trust that the fighters, especially the Pinnacle, like, why would a fighter not fight the same way in this fight versus that fight? I don't know, man. I kind of trust, like, the professional athletes and the professional coaches to, especially at the pinnacle of the game, to approach fights differently. Like, not like try and square peg round hole things. So I mean, there was a lot made about his lack of movement, and I think to a certain degree we could blame believing in his power a little bit too much, because McGregor has only taken more damage as his career has gone on. He's been willing to take more damage as his career has gone on. Um, and in this one, it seemed like he really did believe like he just needed one good shot and was willing to just kind of. He fought with a posture. He really, that at least I'll say what I felt was strange. His
Yeah.
posture, his posture was tight, man. It was really it was boxing esque.
Boxing, like, yeah.
Yeah.
You actually bring up a great point. Let's revisit a topic that we mentioned last week or the week before. We mentioned Connor's touch of death. In retrospect, now that I'm thinking about it over the past couple of days, it's proven to exist at featherweight, of course. It was proven to not exist at welterweight. And we all assumed it existed at lightweight. But before this, we'd only ever seen him fight Eddie Alvarez. And I would argue that now that wasn't necessarily touch of death, and I'm starting to think that maybe he doesn't have that like 60-second one punch dead people in at lightweight. And if that's the case, man, lightweight just got totally different, because going into this, I'm like, man, Connor would dust Dustin, which means he would dust Gaethje. Dude, coming out of this, I'm like, man, Gaethje's a bad matchup for Connor. Gaethje starts kicking that leg super crazy, get them hands going. I think it's before this fight. I'm like, oh, man, Gaethje terrible. He gets lit up by
Uh,
Connor. Now I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm ready to just write off McGregor's power. I think that he has. I think that McGregor still has the ability to, especially if we're just talking about one weapon, because ultimately that is the narrative that has developed. That's going to be how the narrative develops in an eventual rematch. Is, has McGregor fixed that defensive hole? And I have a feeling that, because whether he's fully dedicated or not, I would imagine McGregor is dedicated enough to not want to get his ass kicked again. So I would imagine that leg kick. I would imagine the leg kick's going to get fixed. But that's the thing with that calf kick, is there really is no other than not getting hit by it, there's really not much you can do. You really have to turn that leg out, and if you don't do it really well, I mean, you get chewed up either way. Um, McGregor didn't really kick a lot. He really, again, like it's really this over reliance on the hands in a sport that, when you look at the way McGregor spoke years prior, younger him seemed to understand that this was not a game of hands, and it was a game of weapons, multiple weapons. And it seemed like in this fight, he really bought into the fact that he really only needed two. Um, Although he did land some good elbows, but he struck me as a fighter who, because this was a big, again, another big narrative going into the fight, is we don't have a lot of footage of the guy. He says he's training, he says he's working on stuff, he says he's always in the gym working with dudes, whatever. How much has he developed? How much has he evolved, even though he's had time out of the octagon? And again, I don't like this immediate, I mean, it's what we do. It's we talk about what things mean or whatever, but I don't want to overstate it. But the feeling I have right now, a few days removed, is he does not seem like a guy who has developed in the same way that the sport as a whole has developed.
No, he hasn't. If anything, he's regressed. While
Yeah.
The talent level at lightweight has rapidly expanded in the time that he's gone. I mean, in looking back, he's really lucky in the timing that he was able to get that lightweight title fight, because, like, man, if he would have missed the window to get that lightweight title fight by like 6 months or even a year, Khabib would have got there first, and he would have never gotten to be lightweight champion. Um, yeah, I mean, it's really something like that. I mean, when he was there before, the top of the division was RDA, Eddie Alvarez, Cerrone. Now, like, lightweight is, I mean, there are 5 guys ranked above him right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a thing of like what's next. You had mentioned Tony, a fight I like. You had mentioned, well, did you mention Nate?
I will, after we talk about the
Yeah.
co-main event, we can talk about kind of matching
I
everybody
yeah, I
up.
have some of his stuff pulled up as well. Um, there are options for McGregor, but the McGregor, it's a blessing and a curse, the situation that McGregor's in. It's the same thing as a thing we'll unfortunately talk about later, which is like, um, well, I mean, it's not a curse for them, but like Connor is in a similar spot that like a Paul brother is in
Yeah,
all reality. There is no way for Connor to truly um rejuvenate himself as far as rebuilding himself. There is no true way for him to do so. In the way that a fighter normally would. Like he has a, let's say he loses again. Let's say he faces down with Tony Ferguson, loses again. A normal fighter would then go to like, if they're a pretty big star, they would go to like maybe the first fight on the main card or the prelims, and they would fight someone like Jim Miller, or they would fight someone like a who just fought like a Nick Lentz. Well, you're not going to fight Nick Lentz anymore because he retired. By Nick Lentz, thank you for the career and whatnot. Um, Side note, but McGregor just does not have the opportunity to do that. He'll never have the opportunity to do that. And I don't think he wants the opportunity to do that. He wants every time he fights to be a spectacle because he wants to make a shit ton of money. But with that comes like every fight is massive, and there's no way for you to quietly rebuild yourself on the undercard and then move your way back up into some bigger stuff. Every time you fight, there's a magnifying glass on you, and it's just going to make your ability to draw, which is like this counterintuitive thing, by constantly making every fight a thing where you try and draw people. The more you fail, the less you will draw, and it'll become this thing of like eventually you just won't be able to draw anymore because people won't care
Yeah.
because you lose.
Which is interesting to me because I felt like in the lead up to this fight, he was kind of laying the groundwork for a little bit of this stuff. In terms of like still talking about wanting the Ally Quinta fight, talking extensively about wanting to still fight Ally Quinta, which didn't make any sense. But now I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world. And it's like any Conor fight, regardless of who it is, Donald Cerrone, anybody, right? Or one-off fight at welterweight, it's a pay-per-view main event. It doesn't have to be for anything. It's just Conor fights a guy. If you can get Conor against a guy that he can argue and beef against, and a guy that's not going to sit up there and be buddy with him, even if it's a number 11 or 12 in the world ranked Ally Quinta, you can get him up on stage with him. They can talk some shit to each other. I think you can work with that. You can get Conor out there to smoke a fool, get him, get him back on track. Be like, okay, cool. Now let's put you in a third Diaz fight. Now let's do something cool with you. If he's trying to fight 4 times, this year, which is the thing where like I think Dana might be still working with this thing, being like, well, maybe 1 or 2 more fights, and that's all we're going to get out of Conor. So we need to maximize it, make them the biggest fights we can, which is a stupid plan because you got Conor being like, I'm trying to be active. Great, let's get you a big win. Let's get you a nice knockout win over somebody that's not an elite top 5 guy. Let's pick anyone down the rankings, somebody ranked lower than you. And let's get you a win. Because I'm not like, it is all bad. If you put him in against another elite guy and he gets beat badly again, we're looking at like he's already in a bad spot. We're at like what 2 and 3 in his last 5, right?
Yeah, I mean he's not done spectacularly, right? He's lost 2 in a row. No, he's won. He is, yeah, 2,
Alternating. He
1
keeps
and
winning.
2. He's 1 and 2 in his last 3, and that one was against an aged Cowboy Cerrone who
He's another one of those.
didn't really show up. Yeah, and I guess the phrase I was looking for before was you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And the same is true for his pay. Yeah, he wants to be super active, but the price he commands is just too high. I mean, it has to be from the UFC side. Granted, a fighter pays a mess. So ultimately, it doesn't have to be this way. It's a choice by the ownership. But under the current choice by the ownership, for McGregor to make 5 million to show, do you think he's going to agree to make less just so he can fight more? I doubt it. So for him to fight more, every fight has to be a spectacle, or the UFC is not interested in paying him as much as he normally commands, you know?
Yeah. Something that I found very interesting about this was, you recall, before or after the Cerrone fight, uh, McGregor fights Cerrone. Cerrone comes out and it's like, yo, y'all, I didn't make shit money for this because he did not renegotiate his contract when he signed to fight Conor. So when he fought Conor, he did not get any pay-per-view points, and he got just his flat money that he normally makes, right? So Cowboy didn't make anything to fight Conor. Um, uh, Poirier, right, over this last year, they've had all these problems with Poirier being like, y'all aren't paying me enough after that Hooker fight, right, trying to renegotiate his contract. And they were having all this beef. Eventually, they folded and renegotiated his contract before this rematch with McGregor, and he got pay-per-view points off of this card. So he made bank. Poirier turned around and made hella money off of this, and Cerrone got screwed over in that last fight. So it's like the UFC knows what they're doing. They know if there's a situation, they're gonna where they can screw over the other guy and be like, "Oh, we need to pay Connor. We're not gonna pay you nothing." They will. But there are two different types of people. Like Dustin Poirier is clearly going to be your next lightweight champion, or at least contending for your next lightweight championship. So you got to position him that way. But I thought that was very interesting the way they did those two guys.
Well, I guess we'll move into that, right? Because there's a lot of talk about Connor, but we got to give the man his time in the sun. Dustin Poirier, dude, comes back. It is a when I was talking about Chandler, right, when he won, I used the word vindication. And I think the same word is accurate for Poirier in this victory. It vindicates him in a way um, that's different. A win for McGregor would have vindicated him. It would have proven that he's still on top. Um, to Poirier, this win proved that hard work matters and showing up matters and working, working hard over the long haul will eventually win you the day, and that's what happened. And this is a fight because after the fight, Poirier was saying that, um, we'll mention it here, or at least I will. Michael Chandler stopped Dan Hooker in 2 minutes 30 seconds. Amazing. He vindicated his entire career with that 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Proved to the world that yes, this whole time he was truly elite. The general MMA community figured, oh, this is a 4-man tournament. Oliveira doesn't speak English, so he's probably going to get screwed over anyway. There's a 4-man tournament to determine probably who's going to fight for the belt next. Because everyone except for Dana White, I'm not sure if Dana White himself is just incredibly wishful, or he thinks the MMA community as a whole is like dumb or whatever. But I mean, we all knew Khabib was just not coming back. Um, but Dustin Poirier, after the fight, had the air of a guy who really didn't feel, um, after this win, especially, doesn't feel pushed to do this anymore. He's like, I do so much stuff. This is just a thing I do. What did you make of his post fight uh, comments?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's been here forever. I mean, this dude's been doing this, since he was like 18. Um, I'm sure he sees not necessarily it being that close, but he sees the end approaching, the end of his career approaching. He's taken a lot of damage. He's getting beat up a lot. Poirier is not a guy that I expect to see fighting until he's 41, 42. I expect him to win the belt, defend it as many times as he can, and as soon as he loses that belt, he's gone. That's a wrap on Dustin Poirier. Um, but that's all totally earned and deserved. I don't have a problem with any of that. I mean, this guy's been here forever, fighting at featherweight, going up to lightweight, going on this insane run. Only 2 losses at lightweight in that whole time. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Biggest win of his career. Hard work beats talent every time. Yeah, it's just a wonderful win for him. Now, in looking at what you do next with him, it's really only 2 options. It's either Oliveira or Michael Chandler. Now, I've been going back and forth. Well, I mean, those are the 2 realistic options. I mean, you can throw out there the immediate third fight with Connor, or doing a fight with Nate, because that was a fight that people are talking about that they had before it was canceled, which I'm not opposed to it. Dustin versus Nate would be a great fight. Don't want Nate to stroll in back into lightweight and get this title fight. So realistically, to me, you're looking at your options of Michael Chandler or Oliveira. Now, I'm very torn. I've been going back and forth. I agree with Dustin that Oliveira is the one that deserves it. Oliveira is the guy that's also been cutting his teeth in the UFC, got the wins over other UFC guys. He's the one that's actually more deserving of it.
Yep.
He's the one that probably should get the shot.
Yep.
But, the more I've been thinking about this, the situation that the UFC had, right? So they signed Michael Chandler. They're like, all right, we got this guy. We just signed him to a big contract. He's at the end of his career. We want to do big things with him. He's been the face of Bellator. People know who he is for the most part. He has a knownness about him. So I'm going to put him as the backup for this Khabib fight, right? They throw him into this very high-profile position for a backup Khabib fight. You don't actually need him there. So still, you got him as a high-profile spot. You cut a promo with him on the TV during the pay-per-view, and then you book him in a big, high-profile co-main event on the Conor pay-per-view. You stack all the cards in his favor, right? You give him the biggest platform that you possibly can. They did all that, and then on top of them doing everything they possibly could, Michael Chandler delivered everything that he possibly could on his end. He had the best performance he possibly could on the biggest stage with the most eyeballs on him. And I think Michael Chandler he speaks English. He's way more marketable than Charles Oliveira is. And they're cool with each other, but there's enough heat there that if they book Dustin versus Michael Chandler, Dustin's going to be like, I'll take the fight, but like, I'm going to say, you don't really deserve to be here fighting me. We'll talk a little bit of shit. And in the end, I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be Dustin versus Chandler for the belt. And
Really?
I do. I think
Dustin straight up said no.
He is no, and I understand it. And I understand his perspective on it. But I mean, if you're the UFC, you just put all your chips in the Chandler corner, and then he delivered. I mean, you cash out. You cash out on Chandler.
Here's the thing no one's talking about. Is there possibly a way that Poirier gets left out of the title conversation?
Fuck, I would hope not.
If the UFC really wants Chandler in there,
Hmm.
really wants Chandler in there, Dustin Poirier is not going to budge. Do you think they book Chandler Oliveira?
Only I could say yes, but only if they go to Dustin and they're like, yo, we want to do either the third fight with Conor right now or like Diaz or some other like big money fight with you. Because that's think about it. Dustin versus Diaz, main event of a pay-per-view right now, 1.5 million buys, and it's for nothing.
Yeah. I mean, if Poirier is true to his word, because Poirier, he goes back and forth on this in his interviews. He says he's the best in the world. He knows he's the champion. With Khabib gone, he knows he's the best in the world. He knows he's the champion. But he also admits that the one thing he has never done is undisputed lightweight champion. And he kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth in this way, where I think he's trying to do a negotiation type thing of like, I could take it or leave it. I already know I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. But then like the sportsman side of him comes out and he's like, yeah, but I really do want that on paper. I really do want the history books to mark me down as undisputed. And listen, the UFC's done a lot of stuff. They booked Dan Henderson against Michael Bisping for a title defense. So like it's possible that they'll like just book some stuff for a world title, but I really just cannot see them booking Nate Diaz. I think it's more likely that Nate Diaz comes back against Conor than he does against Poirier for a world title.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I mean, honestly, if you're going to throw Nate back into the 55 equation, I'm down with Nate versus Gaethje. They got a little thing going now. Gaethje did an interview today, talking some mess about Nate. I'm down with that too. Um, there's a lot of options there. I mean, you can't really go wrong in any direction. but it will be interesting how they try to match make this stuff because
I mean, it's been
Dustin, it's
said.
another thing too. Dustin, right? Dustin's training with and shoulder to shoulder with Masvidal every day, and like him and Masvidal are in a similar situation where they got a fight that blew their stock up, right? And they're like at an all time high. But unlike Connor and Nate, where that level of hype just kind of like persists based off of their personality and regardless of like who they fight next, I think that they take a couple of losses, it's gone. Their type of hype
Yeah,
because their personalities aren't that type of way, and so I think Poirier's probably very hip to the idea that's like, okay, I now like I'm a big deal now. A lot of people just saw eyes on me and like me alone versus the right next person who probably do over a million pay-per-view buys. I need to like maximize this, while I'm here. So like he wants his next fight to be something big. Which a Nate fight would be big. Oliveira just wouldn't, Oliveira's just I love Oliveira to death and skill wise he's the actual guy that deserves it, but I'm
that's
consistently
a
thinking that the hype is not behind him. The
that
UFC's
is a
not
horribly
following him.
tough fight, man.
It is.
That is like a real. He is a real capital G guy in the UFC lightweight division, and
Yeah.
a dude who you really, when you're doing your Michael Chandler visualizations in your head, he could beat any of them,
Yeah.
and you can see him being able to beat any of them. The Oliveira, um, granted, like someone could probably play this back one day on me, but the Oliveira who gets folded up like a lawn chair, that guy's just not here anymore. So like the vision I have of Oliveira, just he needs the moment he faces a tough, hard hitting wrestler, he's just gonna fold up. That guy's just not. That's just not who we're dealing with anymore. We're dealing with a mature, strong lightweight who can fight from the outside, who can clinch on the inside, wrestle when he needs to, and use his fantastic jiu-jitsu on the floor. He's good everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so if we're talking like just pure sport, it's Oliveira Poirier all day. But um, that's just not where we're at. I think that more likely we could be looking at. Yeah, yeah. Poirier takes his money fight. Chandler fights Oliveira, and then we get. I mean, at some point, this lightweight title's got to be up for grabs, right? I mean,
At this point, I mean, obviously Dana was holding out hope for Khabib for these two fights, but now that these fights are over with, it is very clear he's not coming back. I mean, we can
that
hear
was
it
so
in
annoying. That was so annoying. But it was beyond. It just was. The whole thing was ironic, man. The whole thing was about not tying up a division.
hmm Yeah.
Like that is, yeah, it was annoying. But yeah, man, in the fallout of this, and actually let's just go ahead and any of these that stick out in your mind, things that you wanted to mention. Um
I was shocked that my female fighter of 2020 was quickly obliterated in the third week of 2021.
hey man, these young guns are getting blasted, boy.
Yeah, Amanda Ribas got blasted, which was wild. That was crazy. Um, Juliana Pena got a win. I still don't like her, but it's cool. Sarah McMahon, wow, I could not believe she lost. 40 years old.
No. Calderwood picked up a win
Yes, finally. Yes, very good win.
against Jessica I, thank goodness.
Yes.
um Sardukian looked awesome. Brad Tavares.
Yeah, that's right. Picked up the
Dude,
dub.
Brad
Yeah.
Tavares. I really wish I had picked him. I wish I'd believed, but I just thought with the ACL injury and Carlos Jr. had been looking good as of late, man, Tavares' takedown defense was nuts, man. It
Yeah.
was so good. He looked so good. I am excited to see him back. He's definitely a top 15 guy. This is his first win since losing 2 in a row and suffering the knee injury. Man, he looked good. I'm excited to see what he can do. Like you said, Pena, somehow Roundtree blew it.
He always finds a way how.
Oh, like I was telling you on Saturday, that was, this is, my bad. I spent the least amount of time of all the prelim predictions on that fight because I looked at it and I was like, huh, Cricino, what have you been doing? Oh, 3 straight losses by knockout in the first round. Hmm. Khalil Roundtree hits hard enough. He has a knockout win over Gokhan Saki. Like, yeah, what
You
a
think so, right?
dude.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Roundtree has all the physical abilities, but yeah, just it seems like every other fight when the UFC tries to like throw him one straight down the middle, he finds a way to just not get it done. I think it's got to be a mental. Uh, is that the sports psychologist still floating around Jackson's MMA? If he is, maybe you should give him a call.
Seriously, yeah.
Um, Evloev looked awesome against Nick Lentz. It was an awesome test for him. Somehow it was a split decision. Those guillotines were super dangerous from Nick Lentz. And really credit to Evloev to fight out of them because they really did look very tight.
Yeah.
And nuts what Nick Lentz said after the fight.
Oh yeah.
He only had 40% vision in one of his eyes or 60% vision in one of his eyes. He just wanted to try one more time to see if he could fight with like mostly only vision in one eye. And
Well,
he
it didn't work out.
yeah, he was just like pretty quickly I realized that was a horrible idea.
Fighting without my eyes was pretty rough.
Yeah. But hey, Michael Bisping won a title fighting with one eye. So
You can't all be Michael Bispings, right?
yeah, unfortunately we cannot. And then Albazi and Zumagulov was pretty. It was competitive. It was competitive as I thought it was going to be. Um, Man, in hindsight, Michelle Watterson was supposed to fight Rebus originally.
Much, much better matchup for Ribas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, this was a huge pay-per-view. It was the second ranked all time. Almost a full million below Khabib McGregor.
Yeah. Takes two
Um,
to get those numbers.
yeah, I know. It takes two plus a dolly through a bus window and a few court dates.
Yeah.
And then we already spoke about it.
That's the thing is like Oliveira's out there making as much noise as he possibly can in the aftermath of this, but like he can only do so much in not being able to speak English. The best he
I
can do is
know,
put an
man. These
Instagram
these
post. It's like, man, if you could speak, if you were in a Michael Chandler situation, you're calling up Ariel, you're doing a 30-minute interview with Ariel, and you're hitting him with like, here's the facts, like I'm the guy, I'm the only one that you should be fighting. Boom, 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 boom. Oliveira, it sucks. It's the language barrier. He doesn't get to do that. I mean, he
It really
can't.
does
Like,
suck. It really
he
does
has
suck
to.
that there's that. Yeah. It really sucks that there is that language barrier. But the truth of the matter is there is. And it's not like Oliveira is new to the game. You had fighters like
He,
Khabib, JDS, Verdun. Like the list goes on and on. These fighters know what they have to do. And Machida,
you know,
it's
all you
just
got to learn is broken English. If you can just learn broken English, we
yeah,
love
man.
it.
it really sucks that this is how it is, but at the end of the day, it's not like it just we've known
Yeah,
we've known for a decade, maybe even more, that if you can just teach yourself okay English, you will be able to get further in the sport than if you don't speak any at all.
yeah.
And it's going to take way more work and way more like undeniable runs like the one he's on to even get close, man. It sucks that it's true, but it is because you're right. If he could speak English, he could be on, he could be, well, I mean, I guess he could still, granted, Ariel for sure would take a
Of
call
course, you can go on there through a
from him
translator. He can make
plus
it
this
work, but it's
guy.
just not as convincing, you know.
Yeah, no, of course it's not as convincing because we can't hear him for ourselves. But yeah, I think we all agree that like the hardcore fans all agree with Charles Oliveira that Dustin Poirier and him is the fight to make for
Yes,
the
it is
lightweight
the
belt.
fight for the lightweight belt. It should be the fight to make. Yeah.
It's straight up. It's very simple. There's really not a lot of. You have one guy who's won what? How many in a row has Oliveira won?
Seven and the six before Tony were all finishes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, you know what? I still don't think he beats George Soteropoulos' run.
Hmm.
George Soteropoulos had like uh he was one of the highest. Him and Jim Miller. Do you
Yeah.
remember Jim Miller's run? It was
Yeah.
like 9 straight.
Yeah.
Never got a shot. That is nuts. Uh yeah, so as we spoke about Nate Diaz, as soon as he's allowed to smoke as much as he wants, he's back, baby.
I do think. I think here's the thing. Nate is smart in terms of understanding the sport and understanding matchups. And going into this, before this fight even happened, Nate goes to Dana and is like, "Yo, I'm trying to come back at lightweight. Get me a fight at lightweight against the top guy." Right? Easy to see what's going on in Nate's head. In Nate's head, he's going, "Oh, Connor's coming back. Connor's going to fight Dustin. He's going with Khabib gone. Connor is going to become lightweight champion. Connor owes me another fight. That is my chance to fight for the lightweight belt. I'm going to walk in, get Dana said, we're looking at Nate, giving Nate one fight, and he's in the mix, right? So you walk Nate down to lightweight, give him any top five guy, he gets a win, then he goes into Connor for the belt. In his mind, you can tell that's what he was thinking. That's a little different now, but it can still work because he has a history with Dustin Poirier, and then when that fight fell out at Madison Square Garden 2 years back. So I think they can still salvage that plan, and I think with Khabib gone, lightweight's a wild town. You throw Nate into that mix. Some fights, I think he gets destroyed bad, but other fights I think are totally enticing to me. Like people forget. Recall at one point in time we saw Nate Diaz versus RDA, and RDA slaughtered him
RDA
brutally.
routed him, dude. RDA, like,
RDA
this is the thing.
brutally
Nate
murdered.
Diaz, Nate Diaz is the type of guy, and his brother for this matter as well. The fights where their style works, they look like a world beater. They look like no one's going to stop this guy.
Mhm.
Um, but for everyone else, he doesn't. Nate Diaz has a legacy. He's a legend of the sport, but it takes a specific style matchup for him to seem elite.
Yes.
Tough wrestlers like an RDA. I think a RDA rematch would go the same way.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is the thing, because RDA is now ranked at like number 6 or 7 at
yeah,
lightweight. So it's
I
like,
think I think an RDA rematch would go roughly the same way. I think that he matches up well with certain guys, but in like a fist fight kind of way. Like
yeah,
Michael Chandler, honestly, I think Michael Chandler would beat him pretty soundly.
I do too. For me, the interesting matchups for Nate are Gaethje, Dustin, and it doesn't make as much sense now, but still, I would like to see Nate versus Tony because that was one that was talked about at one point in time. Those three matchups I think are fun. I still think that like if we were really looking at a 5 round Nate versus Dustin fight, that eventually Dustin obliterates him. But I'd say that would
Yeah,
be a fun fight early.
it's just one of these things where I just don't. I feel the same way about. Oh Jesus, sorry, audio listeners. I just punched my mic again. Nate Diaz is a guy that like really I'm only interested in seeing him in super fights. I have no interest in seeing him or his brother, especially not his brother, but specifically Nate. I have no interest in talking about him in relation to the title picture because I do not trust that he sticks around. I
Yeah,
trust that he makes a lot of money in a fight, but Nate Diaz is beyond just being, again, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Nate Diaz wants to be a guy who shows up when he needs money, when it's convenient. He fights once and he's gone again.
yeah,
I think that it's a thing that I hope future fighters learn from, like McGregor or or I mean Jones, the way Jones has looked. We'll have to see about him at heavyweight, but the way that the skill gap is closing more and more and more and more, um, you got to get it in while you can get it in.
oh yeah,
Cannot. This is not boxing. It evolves too quick. The ground floor is being repoured and repoured and repoured every day, month, and year. There is no way to rest on your laurels because the skill set is constantly expanding.
yeah,
Nate Diaz is not a modern lightweight. He is not. And I think that we would learn that very quick. So just to rein it back in, what frustrates me about talking about Nate Diaz when it comes to the title picture is that I know for a fact that Nate Diaz ain't that guy. He's not the guy to, well, I'll win this one and I'll win that one and then I'm in a title fight. Or if he loses this bid for like a number one contendership, or like he's just not a guy you can make plans with.
mhm,
So it's a little bit uh off-putting to me. Don't get me wrong, I want to see him fight. I'm down to see him fight. But the idea of planning any sort of title picture around Nate Diaz is just a fool's errand.
yeah. Agreed.
Shucks. You know, we talked about the card. There were some middleweight matchup announcements. Um, we had some really cool ones, huh? We have Paulo Costa taking on Robert Whitaker, which more or less we're getting a 4-man tournament to see who fights Adesanya when he comes back. Yeah, is that how we're looking at this?
I mean, it isn't. It's definitely a 4 man middleweight tournament. I'm not so sold on the Adesanya part, but yes, it is. This is the tournament to determine the elite of middleweight.
Well, my point is, let's say Adesanya he goes up and he does well. We have two dudes, right? Because when does Adesanya takes on Blachowicz?
Early March.
Early March. These four matchups got announced for
Is it March?
later than that or around the same time.
It should be around the same time. I want to say all three of these fights happened like with back to back to back almost.
So you have the possibility that Adesanya.
Here's the best case for me.
I don't know actually. Now I'm thinking about my thoughts more.
Yeah,
I thought the timetable would line up a little bit more because I was thinking, you know, you have Vittori Till, which Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. What a great fight. Then you have Whitaker and Costa.
Yeah.
And I felt like the winner of those two fights, the winner of the bout between some winners could fight Adesanya if Adesanya wanted to stay busy at light heavyweight.
See, the more I've been going through thinking about this, I feel like it's in everyone's best, not everyone, it's in the fans' best interest for Izzy to lose to Blachowicz, because then everything basically goes back to how it needs to be with Izzy back as middleweight champion, Blachowicz at light heavyweight champion, defending the belts against the rightful number one contenders. Because if Izzy wins at light heavyweight, Lord knows what's going to happen. If Izzy wins, I can't say that he's going to. First of all, I'll tell you right now, I'm leaning towards Whitaker beating Costa. If Whitaker comes out as the number one guy, it's not him. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter that he has 3 wins in a row. Izzy's not fighting Whitaker. He's not going to come back and rematch Whitaker at middleweight, because that's the least enticing of all the fights. So that I see as more likely. The winner, I would think possibly the winner of Whitaker Costa versus the winner of Till Vittori for the vacant belt, or for an interim belt, potentially, depending on how things shake out. But both those fights are very exciting to me. Costa now has not fought since the Izzy fight. Robert Whitaker's kind of on a roll. He's keeping active, because for those 2 years he was like injured constantly, so we really didn't see him for like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's back and active, he's just kind of keeping it rolling. Yeah, I'm excited about both those fights. Excellent fights, just a week apart. Yeah, middleweight's heating up. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant. As far as like the interim title is more or less just a ticket,
It's just the number one contender fight,
just
basically.
a number. Because back in the day, um, as more seasoned fans, aka older fans, um, will know the UFC has developed a the UFC the number one mode that they're in at the moment is whatever they can do to be the least accountable to the fighters as possible. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
So back in the day, we used to have a thing called a number one contender fight. And it was real. It was a thing that commentators spoke of. It wasn't some amorphous, it wasn't just some like weird idea that like, oh, is he or isn't he or whatever. No, you had two dudes like Benson Henderson fighting um Clay Guida. And it was expressly called by the commentating team a number one contender matchup. Not a contenders fight, not who's going to be the elite, but it was a defined thing. Number one contender, the guy who is going to fight, because that's what we understand the pecking order of this division to be.
Yeah.
That does not happen anymore.
No.
Doesn't happen. The only way that happens is when an interim belt is on the line. And yeah, I think the only way that Whitaker ever sees Izzy across the cage again is if somehow he fights his way into a number one contender fight and ends up with that interim belt again to be a
That's
two-time reigning interim champion.
that's the thing. It's specifically because you've got him now fighting Costa in this third fight. Izzy's like, okay, I just flawlessly obliterated Costa,
It
and
makes no sense.
it doesn't. It's just like, from Izzy's
He's,
perspective, you're like, you keep serving me the same 2 guys that I just beat at
he should
middleweight.
have fought. I think that Vittori would have made more sense.
Yes,
Granted, not from a star power thing. Costa is just
this is
marketable as all hell.
it's a fresh face, and he has a history with Vittori.
Yep.
So that's why it really sucks for those guys, for Whitaker and Costa, but those guys to me are, I just facing a no-win situation. Now, I still think that Till or Vittori does something spectacular. They either one of them get a really spectacular win or knockout or something. Then you could talk about like Izzy could catch their eye because Izzy was been talking about Till. But I don't know, something about their fighting styles doesn't. I'm not seeing some spectacular, crazy knockout from either one of those guys. That looks like a hard fought decision, probably.
Yeah. Well, let's get the odds and ends out of here because your boy's got a German test due at 11:59.
Oh, nice.
So uh, let's do the odds and ends. We'll get out of here. Um, Mario Yamasaki apparently returns to MMA in 2021. When I initially pulled this, I thought they were talking about Steve Mazzagatti, who got banished to the Shadow Realm and never was to return. But Mario Yamasaki plans to return to MMA refereeing. I guess when I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen him in a while, but was there like an inciting incident that
Yeah.
sent him away?
Yes, there was. I had to look into this because I was like, man, he has been gone for a while. When was the last time he ref? It was when they let Valentina Shevchenko murder that girl in her flyweight debut. Uh, uh,
Oh, and he
and
wanted to let her be a
let her
warrior.
be a warrior. That
Oh,
that
ooh,
incident
that's
afterwards,
man.
Dana, that was in 2018 or 19, I believe, 2018, I think. That
Oh,
incident afterwards, Dana was like, no, 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 you're out of here. And even in this returning thing, he says like, Mario Yamasaki's like, I got a couple businesses and stuff. I do reffing as a hobby, and he was like, I do not expect to ref in the UFC when I return. I'm expecting like I'll be reffing in Bellator or PFL or something. So don't expect to see Mario Yamasaki back in the UFC anytime soon with his
oh, that's a dude.
warrior spirit.
That is a level of regrettable quote
Dude.
on par with like these things sometimes happen in MMA. and and
Yeah.
like and like certain people's bombastic ramblings about Rousey's chances in a men's bantamweight contest.
Boxing Floyd Mayweather, knocked
Boxing
out
Floyd
Floyd Mayweather.
Mayweather. Damn, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Well, um, happy to see you, Yamasaki. Let's hope more people the warrior or whatever. You weirdo.
Yeah.
Fucking oh my god, it's not the Kumite, dog. Um, Jake Paul, Ben Askren. This is a sham. Fuck
Yeah.
them.
It's a disaster.
It's
After
like it's
watching
like
it,
even more of a sham. It's like even more of a sham because it's not. It's the type of shit like Jake Paul's got to know what he's doing. Like he knows he's triggering the MMA community by being like, well, boxing is just more of a science, and like the MMA guys, like they just can't box. Like they just can't box. As it's it's like, okay, well, you picked out a guy whose like entire career was being a dominant wrestler
dude, this
who
is
just like not only a retired fighter, but like a dude who is a year removed from a hip replacement.
this is all a shit show scam. Because even after I knew it was a scam going into it, after I watched Ben Askren's interview with Ariel, I even it was made beyond without a shred of doubt how much of a sham this is. Ben Askren is not even cleared off of this hip surgery yet. Goes and watches a video of John Wayne Parr sparring, and it's like, oh, didn't you just have a hip surgery? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, my doctor told me I wasn't supposed to go back to sparring yet. And he's like, yeah, fuck that doctor. And he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. So, so Ben Askren, who was like, yeah, I've gained a lot of weight because I haven't been working out, and I haven't been doing anything with this hip surgery. I'm not supposed to be working out yet because I still have a bad hip. But Jake Paul came to me and was like, hey, I'm going to offer you more money than you've ever made for an MMA fight to come box me. Ben Askren knows damn well that this is no good. I mean, his whole explanation of being like, Ariel's like, why are you doing this? He's like, dude, I'm making so much money. This guy's never fought a uh, real athlete before, or a real, and I'm like, you're not a real boxer. You're like notoriously one of the worst boxers in all of MMA. And it's very clear to me that Ben Askren's like, yo, dog, I've been knocked out on the grandest scale ever. I don't give a shit about going out there and looking like
It
a
really
fool when I
does
get
not
knocked
matter.
out. He is
It
out
just
there
so
to make money.
it is such a dude. The Jake Paul thing is just such garbage. It's
Yes.
just such garbage, and
He's found
it's
a way to
gonna
make
sell a
it
ton.
all a spectacle. It's
It is
just
gonna be a
a spectacle.
spectacle. It makes no sense. It is not. It's one of those things where like Jake Paul, it's one of the infuriating things because Jake Paul gives the answer of like, well, I just like boxing more. It's more of a science, and MMA is more like a street fight. That's why I do it. And it's like, well, no, because like even with Ben Askren's ruined hip in MMA,
Oh, it's a
Ben
different story.
Askren, Ben Askren would just like
Yes.
ragdoll him.
Yes.
It's yeah, it's one of those things where like, yeah, no, of course they don't want to take MMA fights. Like, of course Jake and Logan Paul don't want to take MMA fights because there's real risk involved.
Yep.
This
It's
they get to fight guys who like this isn't even building boxers at this point.
no,
This is just
it's all
picking dudes that they know specifically the risk is so low.
that's it. They're taking the Chael approach, right? None of this stuff has any actual meaning or weight behind it. These guys are picking who is the person with the biggest height, the biggest name, that's the easiest fight. And then that's the oh God. All right. Yeah. Fuck that fight.
Well, yeah, dude, it's God. I just am not. I I watched the last one because it was Mike Tyson was on there, and I wanted to see that.
Yeah.
This, I'm pretty certain I'm not watching it.
No,
And
MMA fans
I'm
will not get
99% sure I'm not going to
absolutely.
watch this fight. Last but not least, and really, dude, I got 9 minutes before I got to turn this shit in. So,
Don't worry, we won't talk about her very long.
no, no, dude, what a sad. I just think it's sad, man. I really do. I think she has some of the worst luck.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, like, it's true. Former,
That's
former
it. The
champion.
former champion is like just laughable. Former champion aspect of this is so illegitimate, but it's like whatever, fine. I just couldn't believe she's still in the UFC. There's no way that she's still in the UFC after this, right? Like guaranteed they cut her for sure, right?
I mean, she has. I mean, yeah. Well, how many fights?
Never. She's never fought.
Sidelined. What? Okay, so let's just go through this real quick. Um, Hold neurologist as part of his free. Oh my god.
Oh, there we go. Hasn't fought since July of 2019. She lost to Pena. I don't even remember that. Oh, wait a minute. And that was her first fight back in nearly 2 years. So that was it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no, I didn't say get out of here. I don't know how the fuck she's still in the
is
UFC.
that where Juliana Pena?
I don't know. They both suck.
Yeah, this is former flyweight champion, right?
Yeah, she changed weight classes because of the weight cutting issues.
Pena did.
No, what's her name did?
She went to 35 as well.
Yes, yes.
I'm wondering why. I'm wondering why Pena isn't still at flyweight.
I don't know. Most of those girls probably don't want to fight Shevchenko, but you don't have much better choice at 35 either, do you?
Dude, yeah. All right. Well, Brad, you got anything else to say to the people before we get out of here?
Nope, it's a wrap. Check us out on YouTube and our Instagram page, which is Poppin' Boy. Give us
Yeah.
a follow,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
subscribe, and we'll catch y'all next week.
All right. Well, yeah. See you guys next week. Again, remember, like, subscribe to the channel. Um, Comment down below if you got something to say. And we'll see you on the IG, and we'll see you next week for next week's episode. Peace out.
Peace. All right, my recording is complete.